welcome back. Today I'll be sharing my favorite journal prompts with you for dealing with anxiety. Journaling is such a great tool for becoming more self aware and to feel more in control of your life. I find that anxiety can feel like such a weight on my mind and make it really hard to think clearly. And if you get stuck in your thoughts like this, you may then end up self sabotaging by avoiding important decisions or tasks in your life or getting stuck in constant what ifs and only thinking of the worst. So, I'll be showing you my journaling routine that helps me get all of these kind of thoughts out of my head and onto paper where I can actually deal with them. These are my favorite journaling prompts, and they each build on each other, so it's important to do them in order. And this will help give you guidance and help you let go of a lot of these fears and worries that are holding you back and making you feel stuck. So, I've got my journal right here, and let's get started. For the first journal prompt, try to give your anxiety a voice and write down all of your worries and thoughts as they come up. These kind of thoughts, they'll keep bugging you until they feel heard. So instead of trying to fight them, make a point of confronting these fears and worries by letting them out. Without any judgment or trying to hold them back, write down all of these thoughts in a free flow as if your anxiety were speaking them out loud. If you still feel a bit lost with this, I find it helps to start a sentence with, "I'm worried about," and then filling out whatever comes to mind for you, and doing this over and over until you can get all of your thoughts down on the page. Once you've done this, you want to look at what you've written to identify the main themes and write these down. Often, a lot of the worries we have are around the same things, so try to find the main theme. Maybe it's a task, a decision, an upcoming event. Maybe you feel vulnerable about something, but whatever it is that's triggering these anxious feelings, you want to identify it and make a note of this. Now, for each of these areas, allow yourself to think of the worst possible outcome and write it down. Because there's usually so much fear attached to this, we rarely entertain these kind of anxious thoughts, and because of this, they tend to linger. They're always in the back of your mind because it's uncomfortable to face them. But a lot of the time, this fear isn't actually that big. Sometimes you just need to get out of your head to see this. Whatever you're anxious about, maybe a social event, a job, going outside, the worst case scenario is never actually the end of the world, even if it may feel that way. So allow yourself to actually confront this fear by imagining what the worst case scenario looks like. Entertain these anxious thoughts and follow them to their very end and write it down. Once you finish doing this, you want to brainstorm ways you can deal with this and overcome the worst case scenario. Often, anxiety shows up as fantasy thinking. It thinks in disasters and loops of what ifs, and it just gives you the feeling that everything is too much for you to handle. Try to look at the situation objectively and think how you would actually deal with it, and really visualize yourself overcoming these challenges. And now, you want to imagine the best case scenario for your worries. If you can get past the worry you feel about things, then you can actually think about the best case scenario, which I know I often tend to skip or ignore when I'm feeling anxious. So ask yourself, if this goes well, what would I get from it? Maybe that's a great memory, a new friend, or you make progress towards one of your goals. But these things are just as important to consider because you can't live life just based on your fears. You can't make every decision out of fear. Otherwise, you'll never live the life you want to be living. So ask yourself, now that you have a vision of the best and worst case scenario for this task or decision or whatever it is you're worried about, can you handle both? Is it still worth pursuing? Be honest with yourself and reflect on your earlier worries you wrote down while doing this. Here are some prompts I find helpful to use when summing this up. Now, for the last part of this journaling routine, you should have a bit more clarity about the things you're worried about, and how you'll be able to deal with it, and you can start planning little steps towards your intentions. I like to think of these as the next steps. So you can release all these worries from your mind and have a clear plan to refer back to when you feel stressed about it. And you know that this plan has considered all of your fears and anxious thoughts. Whatever you've decided to do, make a list of what you need to do to implement this. You can write down maybe 5 or 10 steps for each of them, and then underline the first one on the list, and this is all you need to focus on. Whenever you feel overwhelmed or worried about this, you can come back and look to this first step on the list. They say that action is the antidote to anxiety. And I find that that's very true, but so often we don't know what action to take because we get stuck in our head. So having a plan to follow helps me deal with my anxious thoughts so much because this is all you need to focus on. You know that this is what you can do now, and it's the answer to all your fears and uncertainty. So start small, start easy, and gradually work your way up. Confidence comes from positive experience, and when dealing with anxiety, you want to learn to trust yourself. So, when making the list of your next steps, know that you've considered all you need to and you can now move forwards. And by following these steps you wrote down, you'll be all right. I hope this was helpful. This is the journaling routine that helps me a lot whenever I get anxious and in my head about something. It helps me take a step back and think more clearly. Let me know if you use any of these journal prompts. I hope you like this video, and I'll see you next week.